Scouts have a nickname for the projected #1 pick, and it's a scary one. They call Dybantsa a supercharged Jaylen Brown. Take a finals MVP caliber two-way wing, then make him bigger, longer, and more explosive. That's the pitch. So today we break down the Jaylen Brown comparison, why people add the word supercharged, and then the player Dybantsa actually is on his own. Here's the plan. First, the Jaylen Brown comparison and who's actually making it. Then, why the word supercharged gets added. Then, the important part. We go beyond the comp into Dybantsa's own game and skills. Then, the one swing skill that decides his ceiling. And finally, how high he can really go. Everything is verified. The comp is framed as analysis. Let's start with the comp. This is Game is Culture. If you love prospects broken down past the highlight comps, hit subscribe. We're chasing 1,000. It's free and it helps a ton. Now, the Jaylen Brown comparison. The comp everyone's making. This comparison comes straight from the league. Per ESPN's Tim Bontemps, multiple scouts and executives compared Dybantsa to a bigger, longer Jaylen Brown. And Yahoo literally ran the headline, Supercharged Jaylen Brown. The high-end outcome is Brown, a finals MVP. And the more cautious comp is a versatile wing like OG Anunoby. When front offices independently land on the same name, the comparison has real weight. Why Jaylen Brown? So why Brown specifically? Because they're the same archetype, the explosive two-way scoring wing. Both are powerful athletic slashers who attack downhill, finish through contact, and defend multiple positions. Both are tough shot makers who can rise up over a defender. Jaylen Brown rode that exact profile to a finals MVP. Dybantsa is the same kind of player, a big, bouncy wing who scores in a crowd and guards the other team's best. The mold fits. Why supercharged? Here's where the supercharged part comes in. The physical tools are absurd. At the combine, Dybantsa measured 6'8.5" with a 7-foot wingspan and an 8'10" standing reach. Genuine power forward size on a wing. Then he posted a 42-inch max vertical. 42 inches! That's bigger, longer, and more explosive than Jaylen Brown, with the same scoring archetype. And that vertical isn't just a fun number, it's historic. Evaluators noted Dybantsa posted the highest max vertical of any top prospect, with reports that essentially no top pick this century has matched that combination of size and explosion on a wing. So when people say supercharged, this is what they mean. You're taking the Jaylen Brown blueprint and bolting on top tier, rare air athleticism. That's a terrifying starting point. And don't forget the age. Brown grew into a finals MVP over years of work. Dybantsa is arriving as an 18, 19-year-old, already with that frame, that bounce, and a more advanced offensive bag than Brown had at the same stage. The comparison isn't just bigger and longer, it's a head start. That's the dream a team is buying at the top of this draft. The Brown ceiling reached faster. Beyond the comp, his own game. Now leave the comp behind, because his own season is staggering. As a BYU freshman, Dybantsa led the entire nation in scoring at 25.5 points a game on 51% shooting, adding nearly 7 rebounds and almost 4 assists. His total points were among the most ever by a freshman, and he won Big 12 Rookie of the Year. These are his numbers, and they're elite. Start with the scoring, because he might be the best pure scorer in the entire class. He's a genuine 3-level threat who's especially lethal in the mid-range. He hit nearly 50% of his long mid-range jumpers, an absurd number. And he buries contested, off-the-dribble pull-ups most prospects wouldn't even attempt. That tough shot making at his size is exactly what separates good scorers from great ones. Then the rim pressure. Dybantsa got to the free throw line over 8 times a game, finishing through and above contact thanks to that explosion. And he's already got a real post game to punish smaller defenders. A wing who lives at the rim and the line is incredibly hard to guard, because even on a cold shooting night, he keeps generating points the easy way. That's a translatable every night NBA skill. And he's more than a bucket. Nearly 4 assists a game shows real playmaking feel for a teenage wing. He can run some offense, attack and kick, and create for others. Add almost 7 rebounds a night, and you've got a player who fills the whole stat sheet. That do-everything versatility, score, create, rebound, is what makes him a potential #1 option, not just a scorer you run plays for. On defense, the upside is obvious. 7-foot wingspan, elite explosion, and the lateral tools to guard multiple positions. He projects as a genuine two-way wing, the most valuable archetype in the league. He's not a finished defender yet. The effort and discipline have to come consistently, but the raw materials for a real stopper are all there. Pair elite scoring with that, and you have a star. So on his own terms, here's the player, the best pure scorer in this class, a 3-level shot maker with elite mid-range touch, real rim pressure, playmaking feel, rebounding, and two-way tools, all in a 6'8", 42-inch vertical frame at 18. The Jaylen Brown comp is the headline, but that scoring crown and that do-everything versatility are entirely his own. He doesn't need a comp to be special. The swing skill. Now the honest concern, and it's the same one that has followed Jaylen Brown his whole career, the perimeter jumper. Scouts note Dybantsa's three-point shooting is not yet elite, that it's the single biggest swing skill in his profile, and that his shot mechanics can flatten out at times. He scores brilliantly inside the arc, but the consistency of the deep ball will decide just how high his ceiling climbs. And that feeds a real debate. Because he isn't yet a consistent 3-level threat, some analysts argue Dybantsa is a lock for multiple All-Star games, but maybe not a true top 5 player in the league. Others think the tools and scoring touch make stardom inevitable. It's the central question on him. Is he a perennial All-Star or a genuine franchise superstar? The jumper is the swing vote. But here's the encouraging part of that parallel. Jaylen Brown had the exact same knock, an inconsistent jumper and shaky handle, and he worked himself into a finals MVP and a reliable shooter. The blueprint for fixing it exists, and Dybantsa is a harder worker with better tools at a younger age. If the shot even becomes average, the rest of his game is so good that he's a star. The swing skill is a question, not a verdict. The ceiling. So what's the dream? A bigger, longer, more explosive Jaylen Brown, a 6'8" two-way wing who leads an offense in scoring, finishes above the rim, defends 3 positions, and knocks down the 3 when it matters. That's a perennial All-NBA player and the face of a franchise. Given Brown won a Finals MVP, scouts calling that the high-end outcome tells you exactly how high the ceiling sits. And the floor is reassuring. Even if the 3 never becomes elite, an explosive 6'8" wing who scores 20 plus inside the arc, gets to the line, rebounds, and defends is, at worst, a high-level starter and multi-time All-Star. That combination of a safe athletic floor and a superstar ceiling is precisely why he's the consensus #1 prospect. The downside is good, the upside is special. So how real is the supercharged Jaylen Brown comp? Stylistically, it's excellent. The archetype, the athleticism, even the swing skill all line up, and his tools genuinely exceed Brown's. The only caveat is the usual one. Becoming a Finals MVP level player is rare and hard, jumper or not. But as a target, you could do a lot worse than bigger, longer, bouncier Jaylen Brown. That's a top 1 pick all day. Where does he go? Dybantsa is the consensus #1 prospect, and a rebuilding team picking at the top, like the Wizards, hands him the keys immediately. Drop a 25-point-per-game scorer with this size and bounce onto a young roster, let him grow into the jumper and the defense, and in a few years, that franchise could have its cornerstone. He's the safest superstar swing in the class. So strip it down. The comp is a bigger, longer, more explosive Jaylen Brown, and it's real. But the player is his own, the nation's leading scorer, an elite mid-range shot maker with rim pressure, playmaking, rebounding, and two-way tools, all wrapped in a historic athletic profile at 18. The jumper is the swing skill. Everything else says future star. So is AJ Dybantsa really a supercharged Jaylen Brown, or something even bigger? The tools say he might exceed the comp, the scoring is already elite, and only the jumper stands between him and superstardom. So do you buy it, and is he your #1 pick? Tell me below, and if you want every top prospect broken down past the comps, subscribe and join the family.